Hey everyone, it's Scott from certmedia.com, and today I'm going to be going over the SEO Framework plugin from the SEO Framework team. You can install the plugin freely from the WordPress.org repository by searching for its name, the SEO Framework. We're going to hit install and activate. For those of you who don't know, this is another SEO plugin that's comparable to All-in-One SEO Pack or Yoast SEO. It is free. Their idea is that they were lightweight and fast, and they're frequently updating it. It's also really simple. So when you activate the SEO framework and you go to its settings panel right here, you'll be met with administrative layout settings. You can display the SEO bar in the overview tables, display the SEO bar in the SEO settings meta box, use symbols for warnings if you have difficulty concerning colors. We don't really need to do that. These are going to be just items that help change the way the admin panel is, and they're going to help you understand what's good and what's bad. So I'm going to turn on all these options just to help. And then we're going to just kind of start going through. We're going to hit the save button and we're going to start working our way down the settings panel. So the first section is your title settings. The title settings is going to be the title that is automatically generated for your website. So as you can see, it took a example page as the contact us, then it did the backslash and then Gutenberg Playground. So it took the page title, it added a separator, and then it put the website title. You're able to strip items such as HTML tags, which you obviously should do, and you can make additions. So typically what you want to do is you want to go from the right, so have the name of the page and then the website. For your title separator, you can do whatever you like. I kind of like doing either these arrows or a small little dash. It's a nice clean separator. And you can choose to remove the blog name from the site title. I personally don't recommend removing it because most of the time your pages tend to have very short names. Contact Us, for instance, is a very short name, and you're not making good use of the space that's provided to you. So Contact Us - Gutenberg Playground is a lot better. And then you can also apply what are known as prefixes. So title prefixes for archives, a descriptive prefix may be added to generated titles. So you can remove the term type from the prefix. So as you can see, it says right now it's category : uncategorized Gutenberg Playground. This is not a good title, and this isn't even that great of a title either. But from an auto-generator perspective, you don't need to put that it's a category. You want to treat your archive pages as a form of landing page to help to say, hey, this is a page dedicated to this type of content. Imagine it as like a mini homepage, and that helps you understand how to structure content around taxonomies. So we're going to remove that. Under the description meta settings, the meta description can be used to determine the text underneath your website search results in search engines. It will automatically generate it by using the excerpt. It will also do the same for Open Graph and Twitter card meta, so you should just leave this option enabled. Now under here, you will have the option to configure it specifically for the home page. I'm not going to go through this section because we're going to go through one after we finish the admin panel settings. So afterwards, I'll open up a page and I'll go through each of these settings in the actual edit screen. Under social meta settings, you can choose to output the following types of Open Graph data. You can use Open Graph, output Facebook meta tags, which are going to be specifically targeted towards Facebook, and the Twitter card data. You can also output multiple Open Graph image tags. This is a good option, especially if you want to give people options when they're sharing your website. And then I do recommend that you set an image as a fallback image. You should always have a fallback image whenever you're using Open Graph. That way, in the event of there not being an image or the image isn't the correct size, there is something that it can fall back to. Just upload a fairly standard 1920 by 1080 image of whatever you want. Depending, now some users will say it needs to be 1200 by x 600 dimensions, but having a larger image in this case, it will make sense just to have some leeway. And then you can do the site short link settings. The short link tag can be manually used for microblogging services such as Twitter, but it serves no SEO value whatsoever. Doesn't really matter. You can go ahead and enable it, but it has no SEO value, so it won't have really any impact. For the schema.org settings, this is what the plugin does very well. It has a very simple menu for outputting schema.org JSON markup. So it can do breadcrumbs, which is found in Yoast SEO and all-in-one. Kind of all-in-one. the site links search box, which both of these should be enabled. And then underneath presence, you can output your authorized presence, which is going to be a person or an organization. This is comparable to the social settings in Yoast SEO. You'll go ahead and you'll put the organization or the name of the person that you've selected. Enable your URL, upload your logo URL. And then for your connected social media profiles, make sure to put them in here. Google Plus doesn't exist, so there's no reason to fill it in, and the option should kind of be removed. Robots meta settings. So the robots meta settings allows you to control broadly what pages should be indexed. Paginated archive settings. Indexing the second or later page of any archives might cause duplication errors. I don't recommend doing this. Search engines now are a lot better at understanding pages that are related to one another and if they're children of it. So when you use the rel prev and rel next, it'll know that this is a subpage of that. Yoast SEO used to have an option just like this, but it was later removed. And I agree with their reasoning for it being removed. There's no reason to no index subpages of your archives, especially because well-made archives are good for your SEO. Copyright directive settings. Some search engines will allow you to control copyright directives. What this means is you can specify the copyright compliance directives that you want to provide to search engines, and some search engines may follow it. Maybe some only do it in certain areas, and some may just ignore these altogether. It really doesn't really matter from an SEO perspective, but it's there. So you can set the maximum text snippet length to a number of characters. It's kind of gimmicky. No one's really going to be messing with these, but they're there. You can set a maximum image preview size. So if you've been on Google for the mobile search, you may have experienced little images shown next to your search results in mobile devices, but not on desktop. There's a very good possibility that this would maybe disable the preview altogether, but it doesn't really matter. And the same thing for the video preview length. It's all stuff that doesn't ultimately matter. Now in the robot settings, you can choose what pages are not indexed. So you should no index your date archives and you should no index your search pages, but I would leave the top 3 as they are. You should never no index the entire site unless you really don't want it to show in Google search. And you should no index the attachment archives because they're useless. Follows, you can apply nofollow tags to any pages, which it doesn't really matter. Basically, if you enable the option, pages within that page will have no SEO value. If you could apply it to your search and date archives if you wanted, but it doesn't really matter because they're not going to be indexable anyways. Post type settings, you can go ahead and apply nofollow to the post types, or you can do it for the entire site. You should not mess with really any of these settings. They're just not necessary unless you have a very specific type of content that you're wanting to nofollow for. Archiving. And a note on this following settings is it's useful if you have a custom post type dedicated for guest posting or sponsored post types. This is where you'd want to put it. Under archiving, you have the ability to apply no archive to various pages, including categories, tags, authors, date, and search. No archive is just if you don't want your site to be no archived by the Wayback Machine and the archive.org. Personally, I like that functionality exists, and I like that there is a project that's out there dedicated to preserving effectively large chunks of the internet. But if for some reason you don't want yours preserved, you can disable it. It won't really matter for your SEO. Webmaster settings, you can go ahead and paste Webmaster Tools verification here for Google, Bing, Yandex, and Pinterest. There is no Baidu option yet. I think they're working on it. For sitemap settings, now this is where you get to have some fun. You can first of all, you want to make sure that your sitemap is outputted, and then you can actually just go and click, and you'll see this is what your sitemap looks like. It looks pretty much like all-in-one SEO pack with some slight adjustments. So the sitemap query limit, the sitemap will be generating 2 queries, hierarchical and non-hierarchical post types. You can select how many posts are requested from the database in each query. If you're on a small host, or a bad host. Maybe you're on a shared hosting plan from HostGator, but you have several thousand posts. You may need to lower this value to prevent timeouts and to allow your sitemap to actually be generated. Oftentimes what will happen is if you have too many posts and they're all trying to fit into the sitemap in one large query, the database may crash and the sitemap may never be generated. So you'll have to tweak this a little bit, and typically 1,000 is a good number. But if you're on a fairly decent host, 3,000 should be fine. Robots.txt, a robots.txt file should obviously exist, and you should always add your sitemap to your robots.txt. Does it really matter anymore? I can't really say, but it's a good thing to have, because if you have the sitemap in robots.txt, it should notify search engines manually, automatically, where your sitemap is located. But typically now you have your sitemaps all submitted through Webmaster Tools. This would really just be for one-off search engines. Metadata. So you can add data such as the add last mod to the sitemap, which is the modified time of the content. It's kind of useful. And then there is the add priority to the sitemap. Again, it's something that used to work, but not so much anymore. These are very much suggestions. Now Googlebot and Bingbot, for instance, are both pretty much do as they please. They won't really follow these. The last modified can be useful for the bot's understanding that the content has been updated, but I would say the priority markup doesn't matter at all. I can't think of any major search engines that actually use it. Ping, you can notify search engines that the content that you've maybe published new content, and it will send a ping out to them to start to index and let them know. It says you can use the cron. Basically every hour it'll check, and then if something came up, it'll go ahead and it'll run it. Great options. Notifying Google and Bing should both be checked. I would just leave it at that. The final option is style. This doesn't matter at all. The sitemap will only allow you to really customize how you want maybe the output to look for people who actually click on it. It has no SEO value, so I just changed something to blue. I don't know what I changed. Yeah, there we go. That's very stylish. No, but either way, these settings will not really matter. I wouldn't really mess around with your style outputs. You could actually just not output the styles at all, and then it would just be a list that looks very similar to an RSS feed. For your feed settings, you can convert feed entries into excerpts. Typically, so sometimes content will get stolen and scraped through WordPress feeds. I typically always recommend doing excerpts, and it's just later on the database for most of the time, because you want to drive people to your content. So by having an excerpt, it forces them to go to your website directly. And then you can add a backlink below the feed entries, which will let visitors know where the content came from. That should obviously be added. And you can actually go ahead and click and view the main feed. And then as you can see, the URL will probably be in here somewhere. Yeah, here's the link to the page. Either way, it's a very good functionality, and it probably has very little SEO importance, but it exists. Now, from a performance setting, this is kind of where the plugin really shines. It's supposed to be lightweight, and it's supposed to have very minimal impact. That was the whole selling point behind the SEO framework when it first came out, was that it was faster than Yoast. Under the performance settings, you can adjust how queries are done. So altering the query allows for more control of the site's hierarchy. If your website has thousands of pages, these options can greatly affect database performance. So you can enable the search query alteration. This allows you to exclude, as it's here you go. This allows you to exclude pages from on-site search results. You can perform the alteration in the database or on the site. Same thing in the enable archive query alteration. You can do it on site or in the database. Both of these are fine defaults. You should not really have any issues. If you alter the query in the database, it's going to be more accurate, but it could increase the database query time because it has to now go back and check the database. You could have it spit on the on page itself on the site, but that can also affect the performance. You're basically just giving or taking. I would say in most situations, leave it as in the database. For transient cache, you can enable automated schema.org output cache. Now, the next option, sitemap generation cache, should always be enabled. You never want to have your sitemap always being generated. It should be saved in a transient. Everybody does that. Yoast, all-in-one, they all do the same general concept. That's just the fastest way. However, enable automated schema.org output cache is a bit trickier. If you have the automated schema output, then in the ideal world, you would want it to be cached, but it could cause issues with the schema.org markup not being updated, for instance, on a page. And that's why it's not checked by default. If you have a site that's fairly static, you've gone through and you've set up the SEO framework to the maximum settings and you don't have to touch it anymore, go ahead and enable it. However, in most situations on a fairly static website, you're going to be using a form of static page cache or server-side cache such as Varnish, which should take care of that anyways. So I wouldn't go too crazy in the performance settings. It's just not necessary. Then you have the canonical URL settings. The canonical URL settings, rel canonical tells Google that a page, what's correct version of this page it should be indexed. So if you go to staging2.certmedia.com, and I have a query string with a number with like 1 at the end of it, and that's linked by someone. So Google follows that URL and it goes to that page and it's like, well, this is a valid URL, but it doesn't tell me which version of these pages I'm supposed to index or cache it. So I'm going to use this one. Well, if you have rel canonical and it's set to staging2.certmedia.com, then what it's going to read is, oh, this is the correct version of the page and this is what I should be indexing. You can also do cross-domain canonicals. So let's say you have a post, maybe you have multiple websites, or maybe you're reposting from another website. If you pass the canonical URL, even though the content is duplicated and it's on 2 separate domains and you've effectively scraped it, because you're passing the canonical back to it, you're saying, Google, this belongs to this domain and this is the one that should get all the link juice, so to speak. And this is the one that matters. And then that should avoid you a penalty for duplicated content that was obviously scraped off somebody else's website. Now, you have the scheme settings. If your website is accessible over both HTTP and HTTPS, you shouldn't really have that anymore in 2019. It's almost 2020, and SSL is pretty much the standard. We're going very much to a point where we're not having an SSL is going to leave you as the outlier, and you should not have content that's separated over HTTP or HTTPS. That should be served cross on both. So if you're going to have an HTTP website, it's full HTTP. Don't mix it with HTTPS. You should have a redirect in place and it should be detected, and the canonical URL should be to whichever one you prefer. If you have an SSL, just redirect the whole website to the SSL version. It's better for everybody that way. Link relationship settings will allow you to set the rel attribute for link tags on post, archives, and the homepage. This should obviously just be done to prevent duplicate content errors. Timestamp. Timestamps will help indicate when a page has been published or modified. So basically you have 2 formats. It'll be the date, it'll be the day, or it'll be the day, the year, the month, and the day, or it can be the year, the month, the day, the hour, and the minute. And this is basically the recommended. You'll want to have it to be complete. That way everybody knows, search engines in particular will know that the output on this website is been updated recently. If you update a post on the same day, this markup right here might very well not tell search engine bots. And if you do this on your website as well, it may not tell them, hey, that this was updated today. Having the ability to output by the time is much better. Finally, there is the post type settings. Post types are special content types. So you can disable SEO for specific post types, but you cannot do it for any for any standard post type. So you cannot disable them for post pages or media. Effectively, if you have a custom post type and you don't want to have SEO settings enabled for it, this will just allow you to turn it off. That's all that matters. It'll disable the SEO functionality for those types and completely. And now, as I said towards the beginning, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up a page and we're going to check the SEO settings. So first off, when we made those changes to let us know that the rating of the site, the SEO scale is over here. And what does this tool mean? Well, it's kind of hard. It says TGDG, so title generated, description was generated automatically. An I, which means it's indexing. The F means that the links are being followed on the page. The A, which means archiving is enabled. And then the R, it means that the page does not redirect visitors. And then even if the page title is auto-generated, it may say that the description in this case is empty, or that the title generated is too short. So even if you have titles being automatically generated, the tool will let you know that the titles being generated are not long enough. Now, the one thing you have to get used to when you're using the SEO framework is these suggestion tools on the right-hand side, right over here, are you have to understand what the abbreviations mean. So TG means title was automatically generated. DG, description was automatically generated. And you have to get into the habit of remembering this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the About Us page because it says that the title, while being generated, is too short. So we're going to open it up, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go to the page SEO settings. The page SEO settings is similar to pretty much every SEO plugin. It's much nicer than the one found in all-in-one SEO pack, in my own opinion. But okay, so it says the page title is too short and that the description is automatically generated, and it is. The description is maxed out on characters, and it is a full sentence. It's not a good description by any means because it doesn't mean anything, but it's there. Under the social settings, you can set your open graph data, and this is automatically pulling it from the title and the automatically generated description. When I write new ones, those ones should be updated as well. And then under visibility, we can obviously set a page to be no index or no follow or no archive. And you can exclude the page from all search queries even. This is useful if you have a page and you just don't want it appearing in search results, in on-site or search results, that is. This is useful. Or you could just 301 redirect it to another page, which is also handy. So we're going to rewrite this title to be About Us. Now, as you can see, it automatically sticks the title in there, even though I'm writing over it. This is a habit that I don't like with SEO plugins, and at least it has the option to remove it here. Personally, I think when somebody starts writing their own meta description, the title tag should be taken out automatically like it is in Yoast SEO, solely because you are now taking over and you are the one that's writing the content. So we're going to remove it. We're going to say who we are. And then we're going to say Gutenberg Playground Digital Marketing Agency. Okay, so there we go. Very well written description. It says who we are, and you can also do About Us, but who we are sounds more personable, so it's able to draw in users. Gutenberg Playground Digital Marketing Agency. So I did the site title, and then I did what I'm trying to rank the site for in this case, which is Digital Marketing Agency. And then there's an automated generated description, and then we can actually write our own. A digital marketing agency based in Nashville, Tennessee, who specialize in, let's see, we specialize in both WordPress and Shopify SEO, as well as all facets of development work. So I just threw a description together. It's not even that good, and I haven't done any research, obviously, to create a good one. But the point is now I click update, and now all of these are solid green, which is exactly what you want to see. Now, unlike Yoast SEO, the descriptions here, the suggestions here are fairly basic, which is not a bad thing. Having a site with basic recommendations that are just going to get you far enough is exactly what you need. Some suggestions that would be useful: internal linking suggestions. Now, not every page needs to have content linking to one another, but every page should have something either linking to it or it's linking to something else. And as you can see here, it automatically generated the titles for Twitter and Open Graph. So what's my real stance on the SEO framework? I like it a lot. I like the SEO framework a lot. It's a very solid plugin. It's a fast plugin, and its recommendations are quick and actionable. And the inclusion of this SEO suggestion tool on your all pages and your all posts is really useful, because instead of Yoast SEO giving you a green light and then you have to click on it, and then you're given the list of bulky recommendations that Yoast SEO provides you, you're able to quickly glance at your pages and get actionable recommendations. Whether the recommendations are solid or not is obviously going to be up to you. But from a basic standpoint, all the recommendations are on point. Are they all the one that matters? That's going to be up to you. But when you read it, it's built from a page SEO meta input. So I get my points from there. It was branded, so that way my website's name is in there. The length is good. The description, it's built from the SEO input. I wrote it myself, and the length is good. The indexing, the robots meta tag allows it to be indexed, and the robots.txt allows it to be indexable. The following, it does allow links to be followed on the page. Archiving, it does allow the page to be archived, and it recommends it. And then finally, redirection, the page does not redirect visitors. If you have a page redirecting visitors, then you don't need it to exist. And you definitely don't care about the SEO score of it, because that page doesn't exist as far as anyone's concerned. So overall, it's a really great tool. I feel like it's missing something. I feel like it's so basic that maybe it's not as all-in-one as it should be. But the development team behind it is incredibly active, and they do reach out and they do work to really, framework. And they really do work hard to get more people on board with their plugins, with their plugin. So all in all, if you're using the SEO framework, it's a great solution. Quick, actionable, useful recommendations that anyone can understand. User interface, much better than all-in-one SEO. I wouldn't say it's better than Yoast SEO, but it's clean and it's simple and you just have to scroll. However, I feel like I get lost in the scrolling sometimes. Sometimes with the sheer amount of options logged onto this bottom section here, because all these options, they don't go away when you click that top tab button. These are always there, and you don't know that at first. So you may think, oh, you got to click the performance settings, and then why are all these options here again? But if you click them, it's the same options. So while the interface is good, I just feel like I want it to be a little bit easier to follow. But what I really do like is just its sheer recommendations, and I like being able to get a quick glance at things that are easily understandable to anyone. If I was to set this up on a client website, I don't have to go through and teach them how to use it. They would already know, more or less. They would already know the general gist of, oh, these items are green, but this one is red, and red isn't good. But if they get a yellow exclamation point followed by a question mark, they're gonna have to hover over it because nobody knows what that means. And then you get double question marks, and I feel like the double question marks should be red to illustrate that it's not good. But let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions about it, you can feel free to post them in the comments below, and I'll try to help you out. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.